When indomitable human willpower crosses the boundaries of reason, the scientific taxonomy once designed to classify all things in nature turns into a cold tailor's shears cutting human destiny. Above the tragic, smoking ruins of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, David Starr Jordan used a long steel sewing needle to thread alcohol-soaked parchment labels into fish flesh, completing a fierce and arrogant rebellion against nature's destructive power. This victory of human determination over physical chaos shattered the very last remnant of humility in his heart. In his eyes, world chaos was no unconquerable ghost. With sufficient resolve and rigorous scientific methods, humanity could build an immortal order between heaven and earth. Yet, as he reached the absolute peak of world ichthyology and held supreme authority as Stanford University's founding president, this obsession with order crossed natural boundaries, spreading wildly toward human society itself. Jordan turned his gaze from fish swimming in dark oceans to men and women in the bustling world. He began asking a grander and far more terrifying question: if taxonomy could discern the evolutionary value of a fish, could the exact same ruler measure the survival worth of a living human being? In early 20th century science, evolution and genetics were in fierce collision and rapid reshaping. Jordan was deeply inspired by Darwinian evolution and Mendelian genetics, yet made a fatal, distorted turn in application. Inheriting from his beloved mentor Louis Agassiz the obsession with classifying nature into divine hierarchies, Jordan discarded any reverence for individual life. He firmly believed natural selection should govern human social policy, arguing that modern medicine, relief agencies, and charities protected those he deemed imperfect or genetically defective, causing the human gene pool to degenerate toward terrifying entropy and chaos. From the pulpit of Stanford Memorial Church, Jordan preached social Darwinism to thousands of young students, comparing human society to fish breeding ponds and livestock farms. He claimed that failing to cull inferior bulls broke a farm, and failing to eliminate unfit humans would collapse civilization. In 1906, Jordan founded the Committee on Eugenics under the American Breeders Association, serving as its core leader. He wrote influential academic works, booklets, and speeches like The Blood of the Nation and The Human Harvest, arguing that war and misguided charity destroyed the finest bloodlines of humanity and officially proposing the theory of hereditary degeneration. He divided humanity into strict tiers, from elite scientists to feeble-minded, epileptic, and social burdens. In 1907, under his lobbying, Indiana passed the world's first forced sterilization law, followed by dozens of American states. California alone executed over 20,000 forced sterilizations, accounting for nearly one-third of the national total. Jordan's eugenics essays were widely translated, serving as direct references for German eugenicists writing racial hygiene textbooks across the Atlantic. Under Jordan's relentless lobbying and political maneuvering, eugenics rapidly transformed into public policy and legal practice across America. He partnered with political and scientific elites in state legislatures, establishing a cold, institutionalized system of compulsory sterilization. The scientific scalpel intended to clarify nature's evolutionary branches now cut through the destinies of tens of thousands of ordinary people. Once labeled feeble-minded, morally corrupt, weak-willed, or simply impoverished, an individual was stripped of the right to reproduce without consent. Sitting in his grand president's office at Stanford University, Jordan drafted eugenics reports in elegant academic prose, while across the Atlantic in Europe, these theories laid the ideological groundwork for dark human atrocities in concentration camps. Reading these dark historical archives, author Lulu Miller felt profound chills and shock. The rational pioneer who once searched for truth on earthquake ruins now sat on a godlike throne, cold-bloodedly judging the dignity of thousands of lives. To witness the deep wounds left by this scalpel, Lulu Miller drove to Lynchburg Colony in Virginia. Formerly named the Virginia State Colony for epileptics and feeble-minded, it was one of the most brutal battlegrounds for forced sterilization in America. Following Virginia's passage of the Eugenical Sterilization Act of 1924, thousands of young women were confined, tried, and stripped of motherhood on cold operating tables. Famous victims included Carrie Buck of the landmark Buck v. Bell case, alongside Anna Howe and her companion Mary. Anna Howe was a quiet country girl labeled feeble-minded and morally suspect simply due to family poverty and parental divorce. Bureaucrats used absurd Binet-Simon IQ tests, asking obscure questions such as, "What is patriotism?" or "How far is Paris from New York?" to declare young girls defective if they failed to answer. In Carrie Buck's case, judges even declared her 7-month-old infant Vivian genetically defective because her infant gaze seemed insufficiently bright. In the landmark 1927 Supreme Court ruling, writing for the 8-1 majority opinion, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. infamously wrote, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." The white walls and iron gates of Lynchburg Colony recorded an era of deep humiliation and cold physical abuse. Doctors used Jordan's eugenics metrics to treat innocent girls as genetic cancer. Sterilizations were performed under deception, telling young girls they were undergoing routine appendectomies or gynecological exams, only to discover years later they could never conceive, realizing they had been stripped of motherhood in their youth. Yet, as Lulu Miller delved into private letters and diaries of Anna Howe and Mary, she found a life picture completely contrary to eugenics reports. In the shadows of the colony, Anna and Mary did not grow numb, corrupt, or cold. Instead, across long years of confinement, they developed a profound and warm friendship, embracing in cold nights, sharing heavy manual labor, and mending clothes for one another, illuminating the cold iron cage with tender love and compassion. Anna Howe wrote in her diary about her love for seasonal wildflowers, her longing for freedom, and her gentle care for younger orphans. Her words were vivid and warm, completely shattering the feeble-minded label imposed by unfeeling bureaucrats. Mary maintained optimism after her sterilization, knitting scarves and gloves for lonely elders. When orphans fell ill, Anna and Mary stayed awake all night, applying wet towels and singing gentle folk lullabies. Anna wrote to Mary in a letter preserved in dust-covered cardboard boxes, "Even if they stole our chance to be mothers, they can never steal our power to love others." These 2 women, declared worthless by scientific authority, exposed the absurdity and cruelty of Jordan's classification system. The scalpel could sever fallopian tubes, but never the nobility and resilience of their souls. Reading these archives in tears, author Lulu Miller recalled her father's cold assertion that, "You don't matter, I don't matter, nobody matters," recognizing Jordan's eugenics as a toxic scientific variant of that nihilism. Yet Anna and Mary's light shone like a torch, revealing Jordan's rational order as pseudoscientific arrogance that ignored the true, unquantifiable value of individual life. If pushing eugenics revealed Jordan's intellectual arrogance, the dark murder mystery of Jane Stanford exposed his sinister side in preserving personal power. This was the century-old mystery of Jane Stanford's assassination. Jane Stanford was co-founder and chief benefactor of Stanford University. In 1884, after losing their only son Leland Jr. to typhoid in Italy, Jane and her husband Leland Stanford Sr., a wealthy railroad tycoon, dedicated their vast fortune to education, declaring, "The children of California shall be our children." Following her husband's death in 1893, Jane managed the family's multi-million-dollar fortune, selling personal jewels and properties during severe economic panics to keep Stanford University afloat. Her initial trust in President Jordan gradually turned into deep suspicion, disgust, and alarm. Over time, Jane discovered Jordan was arbitrary, wasteful, and building personal academic cliques. More unbearable to Jane was Jordan's obsession with political eugenics, turning the university into a personal platform for human ranking, straying far from the founder's vision. Between 1904 and 1905, conflict reached a breaking point. Jane informed board member Timothy Hopkins of her decision to remove Jordan as president, secretly auditing university accounts to dismiss him at the upcoming board meeting. For Jordan, who viewed Stanford as his life's crowning achievement and power base, this meant total ruin. Losing his presidency meant his academic authority, political influence, and eugenics crusade would collapse instantly into dust. In early 1905, 81-year-old Jane Stanford traveled to Honolulu, Hawaii, to escape the cold. Yet danger followed her. In January 1905 in San Francisco, Jane tasted bitter Poland spring mineral water at her mansion and vomited severely, chemical analysis by Dr. Edward Taylor confirmed high concentrations of strychnine. Jane escaped death, changed servants, and fled to Hawaii. But on the night of February 28, 1905, at Honolulu's luxurious Moana Hotel in Waikiki, Jane drank a glass of water, suffered violent tetanic spasms, and cried out, "I have been poisoned. Call a doctor," before passing away within 15 minutes. Hawaiian physicians and toxicologist Dr. Edmund Hart conducted thorough autopsies and classic biotoxicology experiments on laboratory animals, injecting extracted fluids into frogs and rabbits to observe characteristic tetanic spasms, confirming lethal doses of strychnine in her stomach and blood. The Hawaiian coroner's jury officially ruled, Jane Stanford died of deliberate homicide by poison. When news of Jane's death reached California, Jordan reacted with swift, cold-blooded cunning. Showing no grief for the university's founder, he raised massive funds and sailed to Hawaii with his personal doctor, Ernest Riverford. Arriving in Honolulu, Jordan used his prestige and institution's authority to override local police investigations. He issued public statements dismissing Hawaiian doctors as ignorant island physicians and claiming Jane died of heart failure and rich person's indigestion. In Honolulu, Jordan launched a massive public relations cover-up. He bought local media, launched personal attacks against Hawaiian coroners, confiscated autopsy samples, and forced his private doctor Riverford to issue a forged death report attributing her death to natural causes and indigestion. Through this iron-handed suppression, Jordan cleared his name and buried the murder case in noise. With Jane dead, board member Timothy Hopkins and other trustees could no longer challenge Jordan. He took total control of Stanford's endowment and administrative power, securing uninterrupted funding for his eugenics research programs and personal legacy. At Jane's funeral, Jordan even stood on stage squeezing out fake tears in his eulogy, while he had just sealed the cover-up report the day before. For decades, this sensational murder remained buried beneath Stanford's polished archives. Reading newly uncovered letters, bank transfers, and poison analyses, Lulu Miller felt profound disgust. Evidence showed Jordan was at least the primary beneficiary and mastermind behind the cover-up. To preserve his power and ideal, scientific order, he could forge medical reports, lie to the public, and defame a benefactor's death. This dark chapter revealed the harrowing length to which Jordan would go to protect his institution. This cold hypocrisy was far more chilling than the San Francisco earthquake. Jordan masked murder as natural death, just as he masked personal bias as evolutionary science. From naming fish in the ocean to sterilizing human beings, and finally concealing murder to defend his throne, David Starr Jordan's trajectory showed a terrifying moral collapse. The origin of it all was an extreme obsession with order and control. When a person believes he embodies absolute reason, moral principles become collateral damage. Jordan sewed fish labels with needles, but sewed away his own conscience and soul. Lulu Miller fell into profound reflection. In her dark days, she sought Jordan as a hero to rescue her from chaos and entropy. Yet as the mist cleared, she saw that absolute order was not salvation, but a dangerous tyranny. Lulu Miller realized that absolute certainty can become the most devastating weapon against human dignity. Humans are tiny before the vast universe, defining life with simple labels is supreme arrogance. The warmth of Anna and Mary embracing at Lynchburg Colony contrasted sharply with Jane Stanford's agony in Honolulu. What gives life dignity is not cold eugenics charts or ivory power towers, but the love, empathy, and resilience shown by ordinary people in chaotic daily life. Lulu's idolatry of Jordan collapsed completely, freeing her to seek a true antidote that embraces an imperfect world. When the pillars of faith collapse in crime and lies, what scientific truth can save us from the cage of human dogma?